On behalf of the school staff and students at Mary of Lourdes Middle School, I welcome all of you to our 41st Veterans Day celebration. I am Jody Vanderheiden, Mary of Lourdes principal. Mr. Anderson, our band and choir director, along with American Legion, VFW, and Disabled American Veterans, have worked cooperatively to put this program on today. We would like to welcome Mr. Jim Lang, the chaplain of the VFW, to the podium to lead us in the Invocation Prayer.
Let us pray. O God, creator and keeper of all that is, we stand before you today, mindful of how much we are in need of your guiding spirit. We thank you, O God, for the brave men and women of our armed forces who place their lives on the line to defend our beloved country, especially those who are now on active duty. Be with them and protect them. We also give thanks for the thousands who died in defense of freedom around the globe and whose memory we honor here today. May their valor and dedication not have been in vain. We pray for our country's leaders and implore you to grant them wisdom and courage to seek a just and lasting peace for all humankind. We pray for ourselves, too, that we will be peacemakers in our own families and neighborhoods, so that peace can radiate out into the wider community and the world. There is much to do. Grant us a firm resolve. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus, your Son and our brother. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Please remain standing as Mary of Lourdes Band and choir lead us in singing our national anthem, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Anderson and band and choir members, for a beautiful performance. You may all be seated. Now I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our special guests. Today we have guests and representatives from the Veterans of Foreign War, VFW, the American Legion and Auxiliary, the Disabled Veterans, the Color Guard, represented by the local service organizations, current members of the U.S. Army National Guard, Air National Guard. We, as community members, staff, students, and parents, are here today to pay tribute to all of those who gave of themselves so that we can continue to enjoy the freedoms that our Constitution has guaranteed us. Our guest speaker today is Gary Arndt. Gary is retired from the Army, where he served for 19 months. Gary served during the Vietnam War as Specialist 4. Please help me in welcoming Gary Arndt.
First off, I would like all veterans to please stand if you're capable so that the students can show their appreciation for you. Students, would you please join me and give them a round of applause? Thank you. As students, do you know the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day? Anyone out there want to take a stab at that? What's the difference? Go ahead. Correct. Veterans Day is to honor those soldiers who put their lives on the line and return to us safely. Memorial Day is to honor those soldiers who put their lives on the line and did not return. That's the difference. Please keep that in mind as we go forward. How many of your students have parents or family members serving in the military today? Would you please stand? Go ahead, stand up. We recognize that families do have a lot of sacrifices when their parents or family members do serve the military. So let's give them a round of applause as well. I will start out by quoting a couple of poems that I found, believe it or not, on the internet. I am not one that looks on the internet very often, but the first one is entitled, "They Did Their Share." On Veterans Day, we honor soldiers who protect our nation for their service as our warriors. They deserve our admiration. Some of them were drafted, some were volunteers, some it was just yesterday, some it's been many years. We owe so much to them who keep us safe from terror, so when we see a uniform, let's say thank you to every wearer. The second one, only two defining forces have ever offered to die for you, Jesus Christ and the American soldier. One died for your soul, the other died for your freedom. So what does it mean to be a veteran? They put their lives on the line to protect you, to defend your freedoms, your rights, and your privileges. And for a student, what does that mean? A couple of the rights that I can think of that have an effect on you right now is the right to an education. Believe it or not, many children throughout the world do not have that right. They would love to be in school and to learn, but for whatever reason, it could be poverty, so that the people your age or students your age have to go to the fields or industry, work in terrible conditions just in order to put food on the table. You have the right to a free education. Along with those rights and freedoms comes responsibilities. What are those responsibilities for you? That means you need to learn, to study, to pay attention, to respect your teachers. Other students in the world would love to have those rights and opportunities. The other one I can think of is religion. Keep in mind the world's population, many of them are controlled by the communist system. Now, the communists do not believe in God. They rule by fear. So take advantage of your freedom of religion, your responsibilities there. Pray. Your weapon is prayer. The military has rifles, ships, airplanes, and the like, but we all have prayers. Keep in mind that you too are soldiers. You're soldiers, the militant church. which means our responsibilities, yours and mine, excuse me, is to say prayers for all the men and women who protect us, for all the rights and privileges we have. Okay, I was sent some questions. I understand some of you have been studying about the Vietnam War, and unless I lost that page, no, I didn't. I will try to answer some of the questions that you had, and if you have other ones, I'll try to answer them as well. First off, first question, how long did you serve? I served 19 months. I got drafted, which, by the way, was a responsibility. At 18, you signed up for the draft. I was off to college, and my number was almost up, and some of you remember the lottery system came in, and it's the only lottery I've ever won in my life. I had the low number and was about to be sent off. Did you see any combat? Well, keep in mind, soldiers that serve have different experiences. Some are in the infantry, some have hand-to-hand combat. Others are serving in the rear. I was in artillery. My base was 11 miles from the DMZ. I didn't see any hand-to-hand combat, but we did do a lot of shooting of the artillery. We did see body bags come back to the hill. So it all depends on your experience as you were there. What branch was the Army? I still remember when you're being sworn in, they ask you to step forward if you accept. My first question was, is this the Army or the Marine Corps? They told me it was the Army, so I stepped forward. I would have stepped forward for the Marines too, but. What division? The division was the 101st Airborne, so-called the Screaming Eagles. What were you thinking about while you were serving? Well, I'm assuming every veteran has different thoughts as they are serving, and most of them probably go back, like mine did, to the family. I had 2 younger brothers, and I was hoping that the war would be over before they had to serve. While I was there, my dad was dying of cancer, and so that was on my mind constantly. Keep in mind, when you are ready to board the plane to head to war, you have no idea what's about to happen. Everything goes through your mind. It was the only time that I ever saw tears in my dad's eyes. At that point, I don't know if he knew he was dying or was just sorry for me departing. What was the food like? Well, it's sea rations. The first time you eat sea rations, you think, wow, this isn't bad. But if you have them for 3 meals a day for 3 months in a row, it gets old fast. The other thing I would say, it all depends on the cook that you had on the base. We had one really, really good cook. He can make something taste good out of nothing. And then we had one that I don't think he deserved to be called a cook. What did I do after the war? Well, the reason I served 19 months is that I got an early out to go back to college. During that time period, I painted bridges for a living, and then I would get done in about this time of the year painting bridges, and then I would go back to the winter and spring semesters to finish my college. But once I finished college, I went on to teach. I spent 10 years teaching, 6 of which were in Royalton. I'm assuming most of you know where that's at. I then went on and got my master's and specialist degree at St. Cloud State and served as a high school principal and superintendent of schools in southwest Minnesota for 23 years. I retired, moved back here to Little Falls, and then I served another 6 years at Upsala Schools as a superintendent, high school principal there as well. How old were you when you entered the military? I was 19 years old. Were you drafted? Yes, I think I already explained that. I was drafted. I won that lottery. Do you have a lot of friends drafted? No, I did not. I graduated with 36 classmates from high school. Half were about 17 were males. Out of that class, I was the only one drafted. When the lottery came about, like I said, we were watching TV. The room was about 20 to 30 young men in the room at the time, and I was the only one with the low number. So I didn't have a lot of friends drafted. When I came back after Vietnam, I roomed with 2 other veterans who had returned. How did it feel to serve in a jungle environment? Well, it was different. I'm one that does not like heat, and I land and it's over 100 degrees and it's humidity is high. We were to serve 365 days. I thought to myself, there's no way I'm going to survive 365 days in this. When I got assigned to the hill, we called it, basically a mountaintop, and the artillery, it was 100 plus degrees during the daytime, and at night it would get down to 30 and 40 degrees, so we wore winter jackets and sweaters at night and took off our shirts during the day and got sunburned. What type of weapon did you use? We were assigned M16 for our personal weapon. I was in every battery that was in artillery. Also had an M60 machine gun, and I was assigned to man that as well. How do you feel war was worth fighting? Or do you feel war was worth fighting? That's a tough question. There are times when you have to defend your rights and responsibilities. Like I said, every right and freedom that we have needs to be defended. That's our responsibility. Without freedom, I don't know if we understand how important that freedom is. Dear veterans, those of us who have never served will never fully understand the sacrifices you've made, both in times of peace and of war. We will never fully understand what you were required to do or how you were able to do it. We will never fully understand the depth of your scars, but what we can offer you is this. We see you, we recognize your humanity, and we send your love that is gentle, patient, and healing. With blessings and gratitude, we ask that you remember you are loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arndt, for sharing your story with us today. It has been an honor and a privilege to have you here with us today. Mr. Anderson will lead the Mary of Lourdes Choir in singing Sing a Song of Peace.
Sing a song of
In preparation for today, all of our 7th and 8th graders were given the task of writing a Veterans Day essay for language arts class. The top 2 8th graders were chosen to read their essays for you today, and we will begin with Eliza Crescia.
Patriotism is defined as vigorous support, love, or devotion for one's country. Patriotism is how we show love and support for our country. When we think of the word patriotism, one very specific group of people comes to mind: veterans. Every day, we should be grateful for the ones who have sacrificed so much to keep our great nation safe. Today is reserved as a national holiday for us to take time out of a busy schedule to show just how grateful we are to these men and women of the military. Veterans sacrifice much, leaving their loved ones and the comfort of their homes to fight whatever danger threaten the United States. Veterans risk their lives every day to keep our country free and safe from harm. Veterans protected the lives of people they don't even know, so we as citizens of the United States can feel secure in our country. While they served, they did things that most of us cannot even imagine doing. Veterans know what it is like to be grateful for things that they have, because in a second they might not have it. When they returned home, their lives could never go back to the way it was before because of the things they saw on the battlefield. They had to be both physically and mentally tough to handle what danger lay in front of them. The families they left behind have to trust that they go to bed safe every day, even though that doesn't always happen. They pray they don't get the one phone call everyone dreads getting. They worry all day, every day, hoping that their loved ones are safe and secure wherever they are. They have to have the same mental toughness and tell themselves that everything is okay and that they will be home for Christmas or Easter that year, that they will make it home safe and sound without a scratch, that they will be the same person as when they left, even though they know that that is almost never the case. They know what war can do to a person, all the scars it leaves because it has left one on them. They will never forget how the days dragged on and how long they waited for them to come home. It has left an impact on them forever. We can show our gratitude in many ways, whether it be saying thank you when you see them in the grocery store or praying for them before we go to bed each night. They should always know that they are thanked and appreciated by everyone who lives in this country that they shaped. We can never thank them enough for what they do, but we can do the best we can to let them know that they will always be loved and appreciated for what they have done and what they continue to do for us. Their sacrifices will forever be honored and remembered in this beautiful country. Our country wouldn't be where it is today without the love and dedication from our veterans. They are the heart and soul of our country. They create the atmosphere that we get to wake up to, the feeling of being free. They have dedicated everything that they have in them to our country, and every day they fight to make it a better place for us. They are the reason we can say what we want and live how we want to live our lives. So I would like to formally thank you for everything you have done and continue to do for me and this nation.
Being the emotional one, it's hard to keep those in check when you hear her read that. Thank you, Eliza. Now we welcome those from our service organizations to offer their greetings to you today. We will begin with American Legion Post 46, Commander Mike Costello.
Good afternoon, students, teachers, parents, and people listening. On behalf of the American Legion Little Falls Post 46, its auxiliary, our Sons of the American Legion, and our American Legion Riders chapter, thank you for inviting us here today to be part of your celebration and for the appreciation given to us and all veterans of the United States. Of particular note, we received cards and letters, and then we noticed the hand-drawn signs that are on the walls here at school. It's much appreciated by all of us veterans. Thank you. It's an honor to be the Little Falls Post commander. Our Little Falls Post is right in the heart of Little Falls on First Street. My post is comprised of the finest men and women I have been blessed to know and work with. I'm also deeply honored to share the stage today with the DAV Commander, Dan Noss, with Jim Lang from the VFW, and Gary Arndt, our guest speaker. One person who was unable to attend today is the American Legion Auxiliary President, Carla Johnson. She does send her regards and appreciation to all of you for your thoughts, prayers, and support of our veterans. The American Legion, like the VFW, DAV, AMVETS, and other military service-related organizations, are a vital, important part of every community they are in. We welcome all veterans to become members, and help us further support causes vital to the health and well-being of our local veterans, our town, and community. To our younger veterans in particular, since August 2nd of 1990, anyone serving in our military is eligible for membership. In addition to veterans and veteran causes, the local posts of the American Legion actively support their communities. Almost all of the local surrounding communities, in addition to Little Falls, have active posts. I encourage all vets, old and young, to join our Legion posts in Little Falls, Flensburg, Bolus, Uppsala, Piers, Hillman, Swanville, Royalton, and Long Prairie. The current service members, veterans, and heroes we are gathered here today to honor and celebrate come from all walks of life. They come from the big cities, the suburbs, big towns and little towns. They come from the smallest of the farming communities to the skyscrapers of New York and Chicago, and from right here in Little Falls, Minnesota. They come from all walks of life. They have various educational backgrounds. They are comprised of every nationality you can think of, all religions, all sorts of backgrounds, all types of lifestyles and interests. Yet despite such a wide and varying background, they share several key qualities. They possess courage, honor, pride, determination, integrity. They have a dedication to duty. They have a dedication to their country. They believe in a cause greater than just oneself. This is why we have a special day for them, and this is why we're here together today. Millions of Americans have served this country. They've defended our freedoms here and abroad. They've answered the call and protected us from enemies and terrorism. They have helped many recover or cope from natural disasters. The American service person is always willing to give. As we sit here today, many local residents have recently sacrificed their home life here in Little Falls and other local communities and across our state and have answered the call yet again. Members of my post, people I call friends. They're also your friends, your comrades, family members, and maybe some of them are parents of the students in this room. I ask that you please keep them especially close in your hearts, thoughts, and prayers as we remember our veterans today, and please keep them in your thoughts and prayers tomorrow and the next day and so on. Once again, thank you for this celebration, and thank you for your support of all veterans, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And as he mentioned, unfortunately, Carla Johnson, the American Legion Auxiliary President, is not able to be with us. She's not feeling well today, so keep her in your prayers. I did want to share, I visited with her this morning and said, is there some things that I can share about what the Auxiliary does? So she shared just a couple ideas. The Auxiliary is an organization that supports the American Legion with various programs and fundraisers to help the community as well as veterans and their families. A small sample of these programs are the serving of lunch to disabled vets that were deer hunting in October at Camp Ripley. And then each November, the Auxiliary chooses one area school to donate money to help with an education program. This year, the Auxiliary recently donated $200 to Lincoln Elementary to support the flyer recognition program. So thank you to the Auxiliary for being such a huge support. Next, we will invite VFW Unit 1112 Commander Paul Young. Oh, sorry, he's not able to be with us today either. I forgot. So he was not able to be with us. Next is our Disabled American Veteran Commander, Chapter 12, Dan Noss.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to everybody for coming today, and all the veterans and all the families with veterans out there to participate in this today. You know, it takes all kinds to make the veteran group. As Mr. Arndt said, he was drafted. I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. I enlisted on 1st of December 1970. My lottery number was one of the highest. I had never got selected, but I still wanted to, protect our way of life and the way and I believe just like he did, that it was, it's your thing to do to go and help protect our way of life. People say, what is a veteran? A veteran is a person who believes in the American way of life and the many beautiful things about living in the United States of America. They are also willing
to go to far-off lands throughout the world to keep this way of life. They do not intentionally put their life in danger, but are willing to fight the enemy to preserve it. And also, what's a veteran look like? You don't know. You could be standing next to somebody and you wouldn't know if they were a veteran, because the skin color of a veteran covers all the colors of the rainbow. It is not the skin color that makes a veteran. It is their heart and their belief in living the American way that makes a true veteran. Unfortunately, though, I've run across some people that they're out there that are veterans but don't feel like they are because they did not deploy or they were never in a combat situation. This is sad because it takes 6 to 7 people to support every infantry soldier. Whether the person is ordering supplies or cooking food, that infantryman needs that. So I really feel bad for when people think that they're not a veteran because they did not actually fire a weapon at another soldier. So every time that I meet one, I try to talk to them and explain to them that no, you are just as important as every other veteran in the armed services. A veteran must also have the support of all his family members, father, mother, uncles, aunts, grandfather, grandmother, and especially their spouse and children, to be able to do their job correctly and ensure they come home after every deployment. A deployment is hard on the soldier who is leaving his family, but it's even harder on their family members who are staying at home. The soldier is concentrating on performing their duties. The military family must stay together and work together to get through the trials and tribulations of everyday life without one of the driving forces of the family. Granted, there are other occupations where the spouse is gone for long periods, but the military-family separation is different. A veteran who is deployed is always in a more dangerous situation than they are when they are at home with their family. And I have a short story that a good friend of mine, she told me the other day, is that her husband is a command sergeant major who has had many deployments where he has went. And command sergeant major is the highest enlisted rank in the Army. So he's been around a while, but they went to their daughter's deployment, and she looked over, and he was crying, and she looked at him and she knew why he was crying because she'd cried many times when he was deployed. And he looked at her and said, "This is so much harder staying home than actually going." So the families deserve a lot, because without the family support, the veteran is not going to be able to do their job. And I'm going to throw one thing in here about Yellow Ribbon, even though it's not part of the DAV, is that you need to know or let people know when you have deployed family members or any other veteran that has a situation, there are many, many organizations besides Yellow Ribbon out there to help you to get through those so that you don't have to call. I had one person call her husband in Iraq at 4 in the morning because the dog was sick. That does not do any good for that veteran, because now he's concentrating on the dog and his wife and not his mission. And that just means that the chances of them coming home from that mission is cut down because of that information. You have many, many agencies back here, the VFW, the American Legion, the DAV, Yellow Ribbon, every other one, to help. So please pass that on to everybody that has deployed people. Now I'll get off my bandwagon and continue. DAV is an organization that is very helpful to veterans who have a disability from a service-connected mental or physical injury. We also work very close with those veterans to try to get them all of the entitlements from the VA that they need. We have specialists that work in that area. And we have 453 members in DAV Morrison County Chapter 12 in Morrison County, Todd County, and Wadena counties. We cover portions of all three of those counties. We also have another 126 individuals in those counties who are eligible for membership. And we're working very close to try to show those individuals the benefits of belonging to the DAV. But I want to thank you all for attending the ceremony today, and remember to always thank a veteran for their service. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Now please sit back and enjoy the band's performance of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Thank you, band members. Our second 8th grade essay reader for today is Thomas Freericks, but we're going to ask Christian Oslin to come on stage and read on his behalf.
My thank you letter to our veterans. Thank you, veterans, the men and women who have dedicated your lives to defend the United States of America. It is a sacrifice to take time away from friends and family. Your profession takes a lot of dedication, and I am very thankful for your service. Our country needs protection, and I am forever grateful for your help protecting us. I know what you have given up so much to defend us, to make sure that we are free. I know that hard work and training is part of your job, but I feel you have to be very strong and brave to protect the country. When I see someone in uniform, I feel proud. Your service to our country has not been forgotten. Because I'm not in your shoes, I will never fully understand the sacrifice it takes. Even after the time you've served, I feel you've set a good example for what it means to protect and serve. For many years, men and women have put their lives in danger, risking everything to make sure that people know they are safe. In our country, we have the Constitution. The Constitution set the foundation of our country. It is written by men who wanted freedom. Because of our veterans, today we can still live like the Founding Fathers wanted. I cannot imagine what you went through to make sure we can continue our lives free. It would be hard to put our lives aside and fight for what we believe in. In our world today, it is hard to look at the positive things, especially when dealing with war. People do not realize how lucky we are as a country to live here. It is because of you, our veterans, that we are living in a country that lets us have a voice. Your sacrifice does not go unnoticed. One day a year, we celebrate Veterans Day together. I feel one day is not enough and doesn't express the real meaning of Veterans Day. Every day, it is important to show respect and honor our veterans. I feel we should have more support to help veterans and their families live comfortable lives. When a soldier comes back from deployment, or even just being away from family for months, we should come together and give them support. Again, to all veterans, thank you. Thank you for your time, dedication, and service to our country. I will pray for you and your families. I hope that you know how much everything you did for us is appreciated, and I will never be forgotten your sacrifice and the love you have showed us. I pray that God blesses our country and we can continue to live our lives freely.
Thank you, Christian, for sharing Thomas's heartfelt message. Mr. Anderson will now lead the choir in Armed Forces Salute with soloists Victoria Zilka and Claire Van Riesingham. During this song, we would like to recognize the veterans here today who have served in any of the 5 branches of the military. Please stand when your branch of the military is featured during this song's flag procession.
United States Army.
For
It has been an honor to celebrate all of our veterans today. Over the years, the men and women we honor today, both living and deceased, have fought to preserve the freedoms we cherish. As we honor our veterans today and all their families who have sacrificed and supported them in their mission, let us remind ourselves that we are always striving for peace, and peace comes through us. Thank you to many people who made this celebration possible. Thanks again to all of you for joining us, especially veterans and their families. Today's program will conclude with a 3-round volley of taps played by 2 of our 8th grade band players, Sarah Kaler and Jonah Olson. Immediately following taps, the Student Council will escort the flags and dignitaries out of the gymnasium while the band performs America, Sweet Land of Liberty. Thank you again for joining us today.